Welcome to the very first episode of
What
Rock
up?
and Ramble, a brand new podcast.
Yep.
Talking about
Yep.
the 80s
Yep.
music and the 80s legendary time, as well as 90s, 2000s. We're going to do it all up to today.
All of it. All
We're
of it,
going to give
baby.
you everything and a little bit more. We're going to tell you stories of what we've lived through in our times and stories
Our
of
journey.
our journey all the way up until today and where we are now and where we were then, and you're going to enjoy it all the way through. Make sure that you do subscribe to our podcast, please.
Yep.
Spotify, YouTube, wherever you can find it. And we'll have a list of all the different locations we're going to have it on.
Coming at you live soon.
And we want to make sure that you also go to the websites too. That's going to be rockandramble.com. I want to make sure rock and the letter N ramble.com.
Yep, gotta be clear
You'll see
about
it
that.
too. Yeah, gotta be clear. Make sure you get the right one. We're going to do all kinds of cool stuff on the website. We're going to do some great pictures, videos. We'll tell the
Some
podcast.
swag, maybe?
We're
Maybe?
going to do some cool swag.
Yeah.
We're going to do a bunch of different designs of the logo. You guys will like it. We're going to do different drops. So they're going to come out, periodically. You're going to get 50 to 100 shirts. We're just going to drop them.
Yeah.
And then once that design's gone, And we come back
Moving on to the
another
next
Yeah.
one.
We won't come back with it again. So make sure you get your swag when it gets out there. We're super excited to bring this to you because this is something that we've been talking about for a while.
Yep.
We've both been through an incredible journey. We've been through a journey of music, clubs. We've
Life.
done promotions. Life's a big part of this too.
Yeah, for sure.
Promotions, and we've done all kinds of managing bands and different stuff. And you listen to a lot of podcasts today, which I do as well. And a lot of the podcasts I listen to are all about the musicians and different things that they have interviewing.
And there's really some cool ones
Yeah,
out
like
there
Eddie
for sure.
Trunk, he's a great guy. A lot of good guys
Yeah.
that are out there. The hair metal
Got
guru.
to throw a shout out for Stu. And
Yeah.
you know?
Stu, our buddy at KLOS. And a lot of these interviews they do, but you're talking to the bands, and the bands are telling you the story of when they started and how they made it and all those things. We're just two guys that were on the scene in the right place at the right time. We went through some similar stuff. Unfortunately, we didn't make it. We're here doing podcasts with you, and we're enjoying life.
We're stuck.
We
here.
are stuck.
But
We're
hey,
stuck.
we raise beautiful families, and we have a lot to be thankful for.
We
for
do,
sure.
we do, and that's a definite thing. We're gonna throw out stuff, and the weird thing is that we talked about this before. Frank and I, we grew up at the same time. We went through the same thing, and we never knew each other until just a couple years ago.
I know.
Isn't
It's
that a wild
crazy.
story?
With all the different things that we went through, similarities being in bands and promotions and Red Onion and KNAC, it is crazy that we've never run into each
It
other.
really is. And ours comes from a little different angle than you'll see with a lot of the interviews for the musicians and stuff.
Yep.
And hopefully you guys get a lot of entertainment out of it. We went through a lot of different times together. And like I said, we never met each other. We never knew each other. But I'm sure we probably pick up the same girl. I'm
Yeah.
just positive that probably happened. We probably ran into each other, probably hated
Probably
each other.
got her because, again,
Probably-
you're
yeah.
tall, dark, and handsome.
Yeah,
so.
I appreciate that. Thank you so much. But I'm telling you, we're going to get some pictures out there so you can see some of the old days, and you're going to really enjoy them.
Yeah.
So, a
And by
little
the
bit-
way, if you just to throw it out there, Madel Fang, we'll talk about our bands and stuff like that.
100%.
You can Google Madel Fang, and you'll see
get the
clips
pictures right
and
away, yeah.
You'll see some songs out there and all that kind of stuff. So
Yeah.
whatever.
Well,
Selfish promotion.
And we'll have
matter
we'll have
anymore.
photos up there for you guys to get to the website. And here's a great thing. So a little bit quickly about myself. We're not going to get too much into this, but myself, I play, like I said, in a couple different bands. In the '80s, Asphalt Jungle, cool band, played Hollywood, a lot of the great clubs out there, which is Troubadour, Gazzari's, Whiskey, a lot of great places, FM Station, a lot of cool places.
Don't forget the Orange County clubs too.
Oh, a lot of Orange County too. The cool clubs out here in Orange County, which is where we're from, actually. Jezebel's is a big one.
Big one.
Marquee was a humongous one. There was a lot of great clubs out here.
Yep.
369,
369,
Goodies,
which goodies became
correct.
goodies and all
correct.
that kind
They
of stuff.
switched
Yeah.
around. But every night was a party night, and I was in. Like I said, I was lucky enough to do that. After that band, I went into promotions. I worked Red Onion and KNAC, Peppers with KNAC. And Black Angus, a bunch of different stuff. And lucky enough, then got into a secondary band, actually started the second band in the year 2000. So after all this had changed and evolved, I got back into a band, different style of music. So now we weren't
And the name of the band?
The name was Madison.
Madison.
Mad as Sin. We put it together as Madison.
Which is pretty clever, I think.
I thought it was a pretty good
Yeah.
idea. Yeah,
Yeah,
the
it
guitar
is.
player came with it. We have shout out to him.
Yeah.
He came with the idea, and it stuck. It was a great name.
Yeah, I like
but we
it.
were more of a Disturbed style of music, right?
Okay.
Which is the new rock that came out.
More
after,
edgier,
Yeah,
yeah.
after the Nirvana scene and all that stuff. They had
Which
the-
we'll
the
talk
Seattle.
about that whole scene.
Correct. So, and then we have Frank who went through his journey of his music, and he'll tell you a little bit about it and go from there.
Yeah, so my journey in music was joining a band with my brother and my brother-in-law and a guitarist, and we were called Madel Fang. And we started out in Orange County, like we talked about, Jezebel's and Goodies and all that kind of stuff, and then we made our way up to Hollywood and played at all the clubs, the main clubs over there, Gazzari's, Troubadour, Whiskey. Roxy. We actually did a double night, Friday and Saturday night, sold out the Roxy both nights, so it was cool. But yeah, we did all that, and unfortunately, the band, and the scene kind of for us ran its course, and we stopped in 92, and I moved on with my life. Graduated from college and then got into the corporate world. Wah, wah, wah. But anyway, it was fine.
I think it was about probably roughly a 10-year period of time that we went through what we went through and did the great stuff that we did in the 80s and all the way into early 90s. So it was a fun time.
Yeah, it was a good time. It was a blast. And I think, at least for those of us that grew up during that period of time, I mean, as far as live music goes, probably the best decade of live music.
It was for sure.
That we got to experience. So.
It really was. We had a lot of great times out there, and the best part about back in the day was really it was free. Mm-hmm. It was free, literally free, and it was free willing and free fun. And the clubs out then, you didn't really pay to get into clubs back then. It was free to go pretty much any nightclub that you went to outside of seeing a show.
Yeah.
And if you went to a club, you went to a Red Onion.
Yeah.
You went to a Black Angus night. You went to Peppers or Marquee or any of those places. They didn't charge you to get in the place.
Yeah, because they made their money at the bar. I mean, we all knew that, right? And look at, we were freaking all drinkers, right? So,
but
they
how
knew.
Did they make money? Because the drinks when we were there, $2 drafts, $2
we talked about it, Marquee, $1 drink night Wednesday nights, right?
That's crazy. And that was the night that hit the most, and that's when they had all the KNAC promotions, and it was $1 drink night. How much money could they have possibly made?
Well, but I think it was more about having the regulars keep coming back, right?
Yeah.
So that was kind of their promo night, but the Marquee was always packed at that time. So that, they were, maybe Wednesday nights, the profit margins weren't as high, but everybody's coming back there anyway.
For sure.
So they made plenty of money. They did. Yeah.
They did.
So.
It was I worked for Red Onion for quite a while. And when I worked for Red Onion, like I said, every night that we did was free to get in. We always had drink specials, but it was always packed. Mm-hmm. Most people that you talk to, they're in probably our age, in the 50s, 40s, and 50 years old, they remember the Red Onion like it was the back of their hand. Man.
Absolutely. I mean, and you and I both had experiences working at Red Onions. I was at Fullerton for a little while and then moved to Huntington Harbor, and you were you finished in Orange, but where did you start?
I started in Santa Ana.
In Santa Ana, right?
Yeah, Santa Ana was my club.
Yeah, and so, I mean, just about all of them were super popular. I mean, I know when I moved to Huntington Harbor, their big night was Sunday night. I mean, because it was 18 and over. And literally line around the building to get in. And It was just, and you know how the Red Onions were. I mean, these kids are 18 years old. They're drinking in there, but, it fake IDs, the whole thing, right? And it was so loosey-goosey.
And to put a small picture together of the club scene inside, let's go inside the club a little bit.
Yeah.
So when you went into these clubs, you would have boxes where the girls were dancing on the boxes.
Yeah.
You'd have girls in little go-go outfits and rock outfits, and then you'd have all the other girls that would get so fucked up they would jump up on the box, and they were hardly wearing any goddamn clothes.
Yeah,
and everybody was enjoying it, and the guys, it was a meat market.
Yeah.
Literally, it was a meat market.
Absolutely. And think about, we mentioned some of the other clubs like ABC, Australian Beach Club, right? We had Live Bait. I mean, every night there was a club to go to that had some kind of promo going on, So,
and a lot of clubs that came out had maybe changed 2 or 3 different times with different names.
Yeah.
Right? Different clubs that changed. One would change to another name, but it would stay the same club.
Yep.
And it would be always really popular.
Yeah.
And it would be something that, we went week after we drank and went out and partied, and I don't want to say this the wrong way, but 5-6 nights a week.
Yeah.
We were out there constantly, and we'd get up,
we were responsible, right? We got up in the morning.
We did.
Work, school, whatever we had to do.
We did.
We got it done. So.
But we did not save. We spent our money as soon as we made it. Did we not?
That's just the way it was.
I mean, I think working. I mean, to put it in today's day, back in those days, I was making a shitload of money working in the clubs, and it was all cash.
Yeah.
And I was having all this extra money, but I was spending it as limos and parties and all kinds of different stuff just to have the best time. And those memories are will stay with us
priceless.
forever.
Well, and also being in the band, right? I mean, whatever money you made went right back into the band.
Especially when you're doing it from the band.
100%. So, okay, made money here, a little bit there, but it all went back into the band, whether it was equipment or, promotions or whatever. Because I don't know if you remember, but, we would advertise a lot in Screamer magazine and Bam magazine. We at one point we bought like double truck ads back to back, right? You paid for all that stuff.
You did.
Everybody thought, oh, cool, you're in Screamer. And no, you paid for that.
Yeah,
so
it wasn't something that they put you in there for free.
No. But the connection was that you buy the ads and they'll do a write-up for you, right?
True.
So they would
if
do
you got a big enough ad.
If you had a big enough ad.
If you had the little ads, they don't do that
No,
for you.
but if you got a big enough ad, like we did the double truck, they did a nice little write-up for you. Of course, promoting your upcoming shows and all that kind of stuff. So, I mean, there was definitely a trade-off.
It was self-promotion.
It was.
It was bot promotion.
It was bot promotion.
Because you had to pay yourself to get in there, and then once you got in, they would do the write-up, which made everybody think that they were posting you in the ad. And
Correct.
you were a big hit band.
Correct.
There was all kinds of smoke and mirrors.
Of
back
course,
there,
of course.
It was a great time.
Yeah,
There
but it
so
was
much fun.
that was all part of the scene. So,
It was. And up and down the strip was crazy. Parties at nighttime. If you had nowhere to go,
always go up to Sunset Strip,
and it was 7 nights a week.
100%. 7 nights a week
To Sunset Strip, you could literally go out there, and you would find a great night of partying, hanging out. It would be debauchery.
Everybody knows that walk from Gazzari's all the way down the Whiskey, past the Rainbow, the Roxy.
Sure.
Sidewalks jam-packed with people, right? Bands flying, people hanging out. I mean, it was just a scene. You know?
People are drinking on the sidewalks and having a good time. And the flyers, remember the flyers?
Oh, yeah.
So there would be a couple of boarded walls as you walked from Gazzari's.
This is a good story.
Down to Whiskey, right? You would have just boards of walls like plywood. And you would go up and down here, and as you were going through, you would see the bands with their flyers. The brighter, the better. Right?
Yeah.
They had pink and purple and orange and fusion, all these different colors. And they would put their poster and bring a staple gun. They would staple it up to the wall.
Yep.
And then
staple over yours or whatever.
2 minutes later, you'd see that rival band say, fuck you. And you'd take your flyer and poster it right up on top of theirs.
Yep.
And it would go back and forth. This would happen all night long. And in the morning, it was whoever was the last person won. And then we would jump out of the car and put them on top of that person at the last second.
Yeah.
It was a lot of fun.
In fact, we talked about this, but I actually went through this. There was a concert, because a lot of times you flyer at concerts, right? People come out of concerts, you put flyers on your cars or hand them out or whatever. And in that movie Rockstar, you know,
Mark Wahlberg,
and Jennifer Aniston, where they're fisticuffs in the parking lot. That happened to us.
Jennifer Aniston,
literally,
was great,
she was hot. But anyway,
sorry,
seriously, that happened. That whole scene happened for us. So it was kind of crazy.
And if you haven't seen the movie Rockstar,
you should. It's cool.
That is a movie that sums up a lot of stuff.
It's
not exactly all of Hollywood, because it only gives you a certain peek into the music part of it, but it was a lot of that, and how the people dressed and the girls and all the crazy stuff that went on in the hotels and the after parties for their backstage. I mean, that was very similar to what stuff was going on for us. Mm-hmm. And even the bands that were not national acts and were local had a lot of loving too.
Yeah.
We got a lot of loving back then too.
We did.
There was a lot of girls. There was a lot of groupies and people that would show up to the shows continually and think, oh, this guy's hot, I want to meet him, and then they move on to the next band. I mean, it was a lot of great times.
And let's drop a couple little moments that because we I were talking about this where we had somebody star power, somebody come watch our show and hang out, and it was kind of a cool experience,
mm-hmm.
right? And for us, one of the big moments we had when we were playing at the Whiskey, we had Michael Anthony happened to be there.
Oh, nice.
And we were big Jack drinkers, right? And he came up the stairs backstage or whatever, and we had the bottle, taking shots. He came over and did freaking shots with us, dude. It was awesome. So here we are, getting ready to go on, and we're drinking Jack with Michael Anthony. It was pretty cool.
That is cool.
Yeah.
They still have the NAMM show is a big thing. The NAMM
absolutely.
So the NAMM show is I know we're going a couple of different areas here, but the NAMM show is National Association of Music Merchants. It's a big show that happens
mm-hmm.
once a year out here in Anaheim, and they have, thousands of people go to this thing every single year. They have all the different merchandise, all the different equipment, the gear.
Yeah, it's a huge show.
Artists
for
come
the
out
local
and
area.
they'll do some signings, and maybe they'll do some shows and showcases
mm-hmm.
and stuff. And and you go for the whole weekend and you see a whole bunch of gear. Now, if you're not so much into the gear, if you just want to have fun, a lot of people just come out just to hang out and see what kind of artist is going to be there and who's going to be there. It still goes on today, so it's something that you can still go and see. And it's not quite as crazy, but still have a lot of fun doing it.
Yeah.
And, you know, back in those days, partying, hanging out with those guys, that was just a ton of fun to do. And my story is in the Hilton, okay, which is where it's at. They used to have a separate room. It's no longer there. When you walk in, you go to the right, there was a room, and it was a big area bar with a piano. And then there was a stage in the back, and I saw many bands. Asphalt Ballet I saw there, Bang Tango I saw there. A lot of really good bands back then. But Lemmy from Motorhead was always there.
Stud.
Every year he was there, and he'd just be sitting on the couch, sipping his drink with his ladies, and then we would get some people to go over to the piano, and we would play. And a bunch of us from the bands would get together, and we would everyone start singing. It was like a Christmas story, man. Everyone starts singing a piano. They'd start playing it. Lemmy would come over and start singing. It was just great times.
R.I.P. by the way, Lemmy.
Yeah, R.I.P. Lemmy. He's a great guy, great musician.
Yeah.
And you know, the one thing about it is everyone was present.
Yeah.
Right? So the people, if you go see an artist today, and whatever you're into, if it's country, if it's rap, if your artist is going to be Travis Scott or Kanye, or if it's going to be John Party or any of those guys,
Jason Aldean, whoever it is.
You don't come.
I like country too. So
you don't come into a bar and see these guys hanging out.
Yeah.
That was normal in the 80s. It was very normal, right? You would be able to hang out. How many times did you go to bars and just be in a bar, the Rainbow, or whether it was down here in Orange County, and there's one of your favorite musicians.
Yeah.
And they're just hanging out. Maybe
hang
have
out.
a drink with you, shake your hand, whatever the case was, to give you an autograph, whatever you wanted. But it was just easy access to everybody. And things have just changed so much over the years for different reasons. I mean, obviously, as things evolve. But it was just such a great time, and these are touches of stories of what we're talking about and what we're going to bring to you through the whole thing.
Well, and I think too, and kind of tying it to current days, right? Back then, if you think about it, nobody had cell phones. We didn't have all that kind of stuff. So a lot of these band members could go to like the Rainbow, hang out, and maybe word of mouth would get out, and they would, Nikki Sixx is over at the Rainbow hanging out or whatever.
Sure.
But it wasn't all splashed all over social media.
No, you had to be there.
You had to be present. You had to be there, right? Where now, I mean, that stuff gets out lickety split, and everybody knows about it.
Yeah. So if you're in Hollywood and Nikki Sixx is hanging at the Rainbow or having drinks at the Rainbow, you got to be in Hollywood to know that he's there. No one's going to call you on the phone and try to say, "Dude, Nikki Sixx is here at Rainbow. Come on up, have some drinks." And you're going to fly up to L.A. just to go hang out and hopefully get a glimpse of a star. Right?
Exactly.
It was much different back then, and he's right. We didn't have cell phones, man. To tell you a little about what we didn't have is we didn't have phones. We used payphones, fucking payphones. I remember when payphones were 10 cents, dude. Yeah. And that's crazy. And we would have beepers.
Yeah,
right.
The pagers.
The pagers.
Which that was actually the first version of like texting, right?
It was.
You could put like hello in your pager or whatever.
Yeah, you could put hello,
little message or whatever.
Little messages. Some were just beepers only.
Yeah, true.
It was mostly for your mom and dad.
Yeah,
get your ass home or give me a call, whatever the case, or go to payphone and call me, because we didn't have any of those devices. Our mom and dad, we told you to come home when the streetlights came on.
Yep.
I can't tell you how many nights I hung out partying way later than I should have ever been home. And I was even younger than 15, 16 years old, smoking weed, drinking, because all those things that we did, we shouldn't have done, but we did. Mm-hmm. And my dad would come driving down to my buddy's house at 2 a.m. and say, because I fell asleep, passed out on the couch because I was too fucked up. I mean, that happened a lot of times.
Yeah.
And I think to myself now, because I'm lucky enough to have a couple kids, as are you.
Yep, we're blessed.
But I think when my kids don't call me or text me when I text them right back, I get worried.
Yeah,
I want to make sure they're okay. Dude, what were our parents?
Well, and so,
and I know it was normal back then.
I got to tell you, and that's where I feel a little bit bad, right? Because obviously, as a parent, and you think differently. Let's face it, right? And I just think back and like I just was so irresponsible when it came to checking in with my parents and letting them know where I'm at and all that stuff. Where now, it's like those are expectations I have of, well, my kids are older now, but when they were younger, right? You're worried sick about them and all that kind of stuff. Where I'm like, man, I should have been better that way, communication-wise.
You
with
and
my parents.
95% of their kids.
I know, right? It's just
it wasn't
like,
just
oh,
you. I
man,
promise you.
Just, yeah, but it's just one of those things that kind of sticks with you. So.
Yeah, well, it's. I couldn't imagine if my kids put me through that. I don't know what I would be through. I mean, I think it's because of everything that's evolved, social media, the technology.
It's a lot easier to stay in
communication.
touch. Yeah.
Because of all those things, it makes it easier. And now we as parents expect more. And I think it's just going to keep growing as time goes. So, in the music scene, way back when, but in the music scene it's evolved over time. I think the 70s had a really cool hit. They were really cool. They had, they started with the late 60s, right? Early 70s. A lot of the old rock bands like the Zeppelins and the Doors.
The Sabbath and all those.
Yeah,
I mean, those are amazing bands and amazing years. The Who, all that stuff.
It was, and that kind of was the stepping stone.
Mm-hmm.
Disco had a big hit in there, and man, I mean, how many rock bands try to do disco songs?
Yeah.
Like Kiss. I mean, dude, remember Kiss came out? They had to.
Well, remember that there was a lot of backlash against them when they first came out. With their disco sound or whatever. Yeah. But I mean, now you look at it and like they were geniuses.
Well, there's not many bands that could go through the evolution of time from the 70s into the disco scene and come out of it alive.
Yeah.
Some bands failed and faded away because of it.
Well, but the thing is, it's really weird, especially since we just talked about it. Kiss, right? I always wondered. With Kiss, they were so big at one point, right? The Kiss Army and all that kind of stuff. But when you think back, and any of us, right, that, are part of that rock scene, and even now, they don't, when someone asks you, like, who are your favorite bands, who are your top bands or whatever, you never say Kiss.
No.
Nobody ever says Zeppelin.
The biggest band in the world.
And Aerosmith, I mean, you go through whatever the top bands are that you would think about. Nobody ever says Kiss, that I know. And it's kind of weird because they were such like entrepreneurs and pioneers.
One of the first albums I listened to, my babysitter tried to shove that stuff down my throat at like 10, 11, 12 years old.
Yeah. It's
coming over with Kiss.
And all the merch and all the merch that they had, they were such great marketers,
right? And by the way, I wasn't paying attention to the Kiss. I was paying attention to my babysitter. She was pretty cute, dude. I just gotta say it out there, man.
Okay.
I just gotta
Truth
say
be told,
it.
right?
Truth be told, at 12 years old, I was thinking those things. I got whatever it was.
But you know what I'm saying, right?
100%.
It's kind of weird that they just never really got the cred or notoriety, music-wise at least, right?
And they really pushed for it.
They did.
They really pushed for it.
They did.
And they in some of the things that they did, they were geniuses. And some of the things they did, they were crazy.
Yeah. Let's face it. Part of it was because they were pretty full of themselves.
I mean, so I'm sure a lot of people know the story, but some of the people that are younger listening to this don't know. But Kiss used to actually have a contract that if the girls wanted to have sex with either Gene or Paul, they had to sign the contract to get them out of any issues or problems.
Yeah.
Is that fucking amazing?
That is just their pure business savviness and whatever you want to
How does that
call
happen?
it.
How does that happen?
Legally savviness and all that stuff.
You want to give me a blowjob? Sign here.
Yeah.
No problem. Sign here.
Yeah. Whatever.
This is rock and roll.
Yeah.
And this is what it was. As we were talking about in the disco, then it came into hair metal, right? Mm-hmm. So I mean, some of the bands that started the hair metal were, and we talked about this a little before, but Motley Crue was the first band that played at Starwood in 1981 in April of 81. Mm-hmm. They were the very first band that broke into the Hollywood scene. There was a lot of bands that were playing.
Well, but don't forget Van Halen, because Van Halen
came right after.
Obviously Mammoth and then Van Halen.
Yes.
But remember, and I was reading about this just a little while ago because I wanted to kind of go back and read about Bill Gazzari and his how he formed Gazzari's, because it started off as a restaurant. I don't know if you knew that or not.
Italian restaurant.
Yeah, Italian restaurant. Yeah. And then he had this this knack for understanding like what the market and where things were heading, and he wanted to make it into like a go-go dancer club or whatever. So anyway, but fast forward, Van Halen did they were kind of like the house band for Gazzari's, right? And so they did a lot of shows there before they really started to kind of turn it on and become the Van Halen that we all know. You know?
And Van Halen actually had some great albums prior to that.
Absolutely.
Happening.
Yeah.
But they really jumped in the scene of Hollywood back in the early 80s, right?
Yeah.
Is when it really happened. But
probably even late 70s, because that's when they came out with
Gazzari's was, when we played, Gazzari's was our home station. That's where we played most of our shows at. And Bill was a great guy, man. But in truthfulness and God rest his soul, there's no other way to put it. He was He was a whore.
It was a womanizer.
He was a womanizer.
For sure.
He loved the women. And
Absolutely.
he literally got
That's why they call him the Godfather.
He loved every good-looking hairband.
Yeah.
Dude, he loved it. And you know what I think we're going to do is we're going to have an episode where we talk about some of these hairbands, some of the girls and some of the guys, and who was your favorite? Who was your hottest one? Who do you think was the best people on the scene? We'll have another
conversation.
We're going to have
that.
one about that. But
yeah.
But Bill loved all the artists.
He did.
And he brought them all in. He put you under his wing, especially if you drew people.
Yeah.
And if you drew the girls.
Yeah.
That was really a big thing for him.
It was a big thing. And I got to tell you, though, and just this is our personal experience and the times that we played at Gazzari's, Bill was always very supportive. He was very, very cool to us. And honestly, that's where we felt the most comfortable, you know, just because it was just, he was so welcoming. And, you know, granted, we did the things that we needed to do, sell the tickets, bring in the fans, the chicks and all that stuff. But he was always very supportive.
Some people have a really bad rap on him. I don't think it's fair.
We don't know. Everybody has their own experience.
No, but you hear the stories about, you know, like you said, it was a womanizer, all different things. But, you know, I mean, we lived in that time, and it was really crazy.
Yeah.
And just because he was older, because he was a lot older than all of us, maybe he was a perverted guy, but I mean, he wasn't trying to go for, you know, super young people. He was just going for girls but it was part of the time.
Yeah.
And he did a lot of great things for musicians.
Absolutely.
And for people that goes unsaid.
And for the city, too.
Yeah.
I mean, he really did. He fought for, you know, music and the scene and all that kind of stuff, too.
Sure.
So, yeah.
The whiskey was a big part of that, too. Great movement down in Hollywood.
Yep.
And there's all those clubs. Gazzari's is the one that's demolished now.
Yep.
The whiskey's still there. The Roxy's still there. The Rainbow.
I think they rebuilt it, though. They built it into
They turned it into billboards.
Billboards or something.
Because
yeah.
I remember we saw Rat there when the scene left, right, and the scene was dying out because of the grunge.
Yeah.
Rat came back and got back together. It must have been 96. It was in the middle 90s.
Okay.
And they played at billboards. And me and my buddy, we were fucking jumping up and down and high-fiving. Rock is back. Because, you know, when it left, we were all crushed.
Oh, everybody was bummed, for sure.
It was a crushing moment for everybody.
Yeah.
So, you know, back to the timeline a little bit. Through the 80s, we did our hair metal thing and did all those, and it was total craziness, out of control. Mm-hmm. The KNAC radio station, which Frank has on the shirt. Frank used
broke
to work
this out of the vault right here.
Working fingers, Frank from KNAC.
Yeah, van driver.
Beautiful.
Me and Razor, you know, shout out to Razor.
Good guy, dude.
Yeah, great guy.
Yeah, I worked with KNAC. I didn't work for him. He was lucky enough to work for them, but I worked with them because all the clubs that we did, we had promotions and we did KNAC promotion nights and everything. So I worked with a lot of guys there due to that. But just a great story of KNAC. It was just an amazing, legendary radio station in Hollywood. I mean,
yeah,
station.
Some of my great memories of just working for KNAC was, I'll never forget, you know, coming home from one of our van runs, doing, you know, one of our promotions and all that kind of stuff, and pulling up underground was where we would park the van, and you take the stairs or the elevator up to that was second or third floor, wherever it was, can't remember now, but you come into the actual studio portion. And this would be late at night, right? Because we'd be done with our whatever shift we were doing, and you know, you never know who'd be in there, which musical artist was being interviewed. You know, by Long Paul
that was
or whoever the DJs
daily.
were. Almost every night there was somebody that was in there getting interviewed. So it was really cool. You pass by and you'd see, you know, Axl Rose in there, Vince Neil, whoever, you know. But it was really, really cool. So.
And KNAC was One Ocean Drive. We talked about that too.
Yep.
One Ocean Drive in Long Beach, and you know, I've been to KNAC studios myself quite a few times, and you obviously worked there. Mm-hmm. It really wasn't. It sounds more luxurious on the radio and being how crazy it was, but it really wasn't. Yeah, it wasn't. They didn't really put a lot of money into the place.
It was very. It was a very kind of
a little rundown.
little rundown, and just kind of like, you know, incognito.
But
kind
the
of
story
thing,
of KNAC and the story of the how worldwide that was. Just it's 100% legendary all over the world. Everybody knew and for a little tiny station in Long Beach,
it was amazing
you barely got anything in L.A. You barely got in some of Orange County. I was over here. I live in Southern Orange County and lived in Southern Orange County the whole time.
Yeah.
So and it was out of Long Beach. So for me, we're probably 15 miles or whatever it is away, 20 miles away from the location where I was living, and that distance of what it took really, it kind of killed the signal. So there'd be spots where I lived where I wouldn't quite get it, and to have a station that had that weak of a signal, but such a grip on the scene was unbelievable.
Yeah. That just shows you how impactful that music was at that time.
It was.
It really was.
I think the music, the hair metal was so big in the 80s that I think KNAC was one of the only stations at the time that broke that music and that stuck behind the music 100%.
Yeah.
And didn't deviate to something else, right? So because of that, I think it really had a different kind of feel for it. And people all over wanted that, but didn't have it in their town, and they heard about it, and because of it, they latched onto it.
Yeah. Well, and I think the differentiator, I think too, was because obviously, the predecessors, KMAT, KLOS, all that kind of stuff. They were very much obviously playing the rock stuff, classics, all that, but nobody was really giving new bands a chance, right? And especially upcoming, LA scene and wherever. I mean. KNAC did that. It was an open, forum for bands to
open format
to have a shot to make it right. And then when the hair bands, it really started to take off. Everybody was like all about KNAC. If you wanted to make it, you wanted to get on KNAC, right?
That's true.
So I remember being at the station, and there'd be stacks and stacks of demo tapes. Right, bands sending in demo tapes, trying to get heard and seen, And
isn't that a whole nother thing now?
That's totally different.
I mean,
totally different.
Back in the day, what you would do is you would take a cassette, because back then you didn't burn records, right? You had cassette tapes, and that was common. And then from cassette went to CD.
Yeah, because CDs at that point were just coming out, and they were too expensive, right? So we're still doing typical demo tapes. So.
Correct, and you're sending these tapes to the music, to the record stores, record industry, I say the people, to the labels, trying to get somebody
A&R reps, all that
trying
stuff.
to get somebody to listen to it. And if they listen to it and you got lucky, maybe you would get a shot or you get it. There was signings of bands all over.
Left and right.
It was almost like a kid in a candy store to get a record label deal. It really, to have a deal really didn't mean, it meant a lot to you, but it didn't quite mean as much because it was saturated.
Yeah.
With obviously all the different contracts that were coming out, and then a lot of these record companies at the end of the year would need tax write-offs, and they would sign a whole bunch of bands at the end, and then they would shelf them, and they would never really see the light of day.
Right.
And that was sad.
I mean, you heard bands getting into some bad deals where they're committed to doing X number of albums and in X amount of time,
and they don't want to let you out of the contract.
And they won't let you out, and you're stuck.
But back in the day, like I said, getting record deals was not too big of a deal. It was really kind of a simple thing. The process of it wasn't hard. You put your demo tape in to try to get that gig. And nowadays, you put yourself on YouTube.
Yeah,
Justin Bieber got signed because of YouTube.
Yeah,
I mean, so many artists.
How crazy is that, right? I mean, it's just so the opportunities now, that these young artists have that we would have loved to have back in those days, right?
I think
we didn't have
but
that.
I think you can't take away from what we had, because going to a Tower Records, these kids have no idea what it was like to walk into a Tower Records.
Right.
To see the brand new press, the brand new album or cassette or CD on the shelf, waiting in line.
Yeah.
Waiting in line. When Guns N' Roses came out with Use Your Illusion, people were lining up at 12 o'clock midnight to get it.
Yeah.
And they dropped it at 1 in the morning, 12 at night, whatever time it was. There was a line for days to get that thing, because it was the excitement of getting the album, being the first one to have it, take it home, put it on your record or your cassette tech, and just listen to it. They don't have that, and that's a big loss. And you think about technology and how great things are, but nobody pays for CDs. Nobody pays for albums anymore.
Yeah.
Everybody downloads it. They get Spotify. They get Pandora.
Yeah, they pick up their individual songs.
Yeah,
but how cool was that to buy that album and then listen to all those songs on both sides, right? Where you're just like, a song that you wouldn't even thought, or didn't even know about, and you listen to it like, wow, that's such a cool song.
You go to concerts now, and I think we talked a little bit. We went to see Tesla last night, and Tesla has such a large library of music.
Oh yeah.
I mean, it's an amazing library that my wife and I were standing there watching the show, and we were talking and saying, they didn't play this song, they didn't play that song. And Tesla's a great band, as far as their music, because what they do is they play a lot of different songs. You rarely go to a show and see the same songs. Now, you'll see the popular ones, like you'll see Love Song, you'll see Signs, you'll see those ones.
Yeah.
Because those are the most popular songs, and they're going to play those at every show. But they have, let's say they do 15 songs. They're going to do 5 every night and 10 different ones.
Mm-hmm.
And we saw some of the songs they played last night, like Forevermore is on the Forevermore album. You'd never hear that being played, but they played it last night.
Mm-hmm.
And I told my friend who went with us, I'm like, dude, I've
heard that in a long time.
I don't think I've ever heard it live.
Yeah.
I don't think ever. And that's what's so great about the catalog that they put together and the band that they become. It's amazing. But you lose that because you don't know those albums and you don't know those songs because you don't listen to it. You hear what's popular and you download that one and you make yourself a playlist and you put that one popular song on there. And maybe you'll go through 2 or 3. Maybe you'll find a little something. And if you're lucky enough to get a couple songs out of the first 5 you listen to, maybe you'll deep digger into who they are and their tracks.
Yeah.
But, it's not the same.
No.
It's
but also, I mean, we don't want to, downplay or diminish these great new artists.
Of course.
That, obviously it's Taylor Swift's and Gaga's and all that stuff that, they put out great albums, great music, all that kind of stuff. But the way you listen to it is very different than it was in the past, right? When we were growing up.
And I think all I'm trying to say is I'm just trying to say that the some of the feels that we had and what we went through was what that 80s was about.
Yeah.
And what music was then. And there's a lot of loss in that. And kids, in the youth now, they don't go out and be on the streets like we were. Mm-hmm. They don't go out there and go out and party just randomly at some park party. They don't have that kind of stuff like we did back then.
How many backyard parties did we used to do? Everybody shows up, word of mouth, kegger party.
They don't have kegger parties anymore.
I mean,
if they do, I'm unaware of it.
Yeah.
My daughter or son will say, "Hey, I'm going to a party." Like, hey, have a great time. Go and they'll have a friend's house or something. They'll have drinks, and but they don't do. Hey, we're going to a kegger.
Right.
When I was in high school,
that's
that's
huge.
all I want to know. Where's the kegger party?
Right.
After school.
Yeah.
After school, daytime, we go home, we tap a keg at 15, 16 years old, and we party all day.
And then do you have a guy there was always that one guy, right, that would charge like $5, a head at the door to get in or whatever, backyard party, and like, what is he doing with all that money, right?
So here's a quick story. I don't want to spend too much, but my old man owned a auto shop called the Monkey Wrench, which was down in Mission Viejo, and some people listening to this will know because it was a pretty big party we used to have there, and my dad would allow us to have band practice there. So I would tell him, we're going to have band practice tonight, Dad. Can I use the shop? And he'd be like, yeah, sure, go ahead. And we would move he had a shop that was like shaped like an L. We'd take all the toolboxes and everything and put them in the back portion, and we'd have one big long strip of a couple thousand square feet.
Okay.
And we would have a band come in there and play. Okay. Our band, another band, somebody would play that night.
Right.
And they would come down there and they would play. And when they came in, we would charge money at the door.
Yeah.
So we'd charge $5 or $10 a person. There was people wanting to come to this party to give sweaters off their back, shirts, whatever they could give us. Oh, come on, man, just let us in.
Yeah.
And we'd have 4 or 5 kegs lined up on the walls. It was completely, and at the end of the night, we'd clean all the stuff up, and my dad would come to work and say, God, it smells like beer in here. Well, we had band practice now. We were drinking and stuff, and, we're 17 years old. My dad was really a cool cat.
Yeah. Do you think he knew? He probably knew.
He didn't know. My dad was a little naive to it, and here's why. So fast forward a couple years. We've been doing this for a couple years now. We were making, doing the money, whatever. And I told my dad, unfortunately, my dad was going to close the shop. And I told him, hey, before you close the shop, Dad, let me have a party here. Now, he had found out that we had parties. And the way he found out was one night, we told him we were doing band practice, and we had this big party. And my dad decided on the way home, I'm just going to drive by the shop just to see if everything's cool, whatever. And he wasn't even going to come down the street. He was driving down the outskirt street. And as he was going down, he saw these flashing lights.
Oh, shit.
So he comes into the parking lot, and there's me handcuffed in the back of the cop car, getting busted.
True rock star
for
there.
contributing to the delinquency of to underage drinking, right?
Yeah.
And this is how cool my dad was. My dad talked to the police officer. They ended up saying, okay, we're not going to press charges. You know what's going on, all this different stuff. At the end of all this stuff, my friends were going to the bar down the street, which I was promoting, by the way, at that age. And I told them, Dad, do you mind if I go with my friends and hang out? And he fucking let me go, dude. I mean, so I'm in a cop car 1 minute thinking I'm busted, and my dad
you
is
are
cool
good,
as
man.
my dad.
You can really
dude,
sell
my
it,
dad
Dad.
was the coolest dude in
That
the world.
that is really cool.
He really was a cool cat, man.
Yeah.
And so we had these parties, and to sum this up quick, I'm sorry it took so long. To sum this up, I let my dad let me have a party like before we closed it, and we had this party. We had this cool band called Visitor come down. We had 6 kegs on the wall. We were charging $15 to get in. It was going to be the last hoorah. The end of the night, the band was having a mosh pit, and we told them, dude, you got to slow it down because it's a shop.
Sure.
Oils and things on the ground, right? People could slip. So they started trying to play different music, and they went into blues. People still moshing. I'm like, dude, we're going to have to shut it down. And they get on the mic and say, hey, thank you guys for coming out. Dude, everybody walked out of the party. I didn't have to kick anybody out. Everybody just left.
Wow.
We took all the money, took the kegs, put them in the back of a truck, went to a friend's house, drank all night. I bought everybody concert tickets for helping.
Yeah.
The next day, my dad comes in the shop, and I walk up to him, and I hand him $1,000.
Oh, that'll make any dad happy.
$1,000.
Yeah.
And my dad looks and goes, what is this? I said, this is the earnings from the party that I did last night. He goes, you're fucking kidding me. I'm not kidding you, Dad. If you had listened to me before and let me throw these parties, we wouldn't be closing the shop right now. Right? And he looks at me, he goes, okay, well, let me get your cut. I said, no, that's your cut. That's 50% of what I made. $2,000.
He was probably floored, too.
$2,000 after paying for everything when I was 16, 17, 18, whatever I was. I can't even remember how old I was.
Yeah.
But I was young. That's crazy.
Yeah, that is nuts. But speaking of that, so, we talked about backyard parties and all that stuff. Other places that we would play besides the clubs and all that stuff is we would rent out VFW halls, right?
Okay.
And that's
we never did that.
You guys didn't do that?
No, we
didn't.
So
we did that I think a couple times where we play. I don't know if you remember that band Child Saint. They were cool dudes, and
I've heard of them.
we get together here locally in Orange County and rent one of those halls out, and same thing, get the kegs and all that stuff. And it was kind of cool because there was you didn't have the restrictions of what normal clubs would have.
So you did it a little more in the legal way.
Yeah.
Where I was more illegal being
you
kid.
did. Yeah. So, but it was cool. But also, we for a while also practiced out of a paint shop that my drummer was working at. So, which was kind of weird because we get in there, after the shop closed up and all that stuff. And you'd have the paint fumes kind of still in there and stuff like that.
You guys are getting
As we're
high.
practicing. Yeah, it's kind of weird. Yeah,
you didn't have to pay for it.
Yeah,
it was a free
but
high.
it was free.
Yeah.
So kind of like you do what you got to do.
Yeah,
so
it was fun. It was fun, wasn't it?
Fun. Yeah.
That's such great times. The backyard parties. You won't see those things again.
No.
I mean, maybe one day. You never know what could come back. I mean, shoot, dude, bands are coming back now. Rock bands.
Yeah.
A lot of these new bands that are out there now and that are doing the rock scene's it's kind of coming circle.
Yeah.
The bands now aren't the hair metal rock scene. They're more like a 70s. Have you heard some of the new bands?
Yeah.
Gunshine, Dirty Honey. You know Dirty Honey,
Yeah,
right?
of course.
Gunshine, Dirty Honey, Greta
Well,
Van
I'm even
Fleet.
thinking about, they've been out for a while now, but Darkness, and all
Yes.
that kind of stuff. The problem is they don't really have an avenue to really kind of play their music.
The
because,
Darkness was, the Darkness was in a bad time.
Yeah.
So the bands now, I think, are more of a there's more of a movement of that style of music a little bit now, where there's a bunch of bands where the Darkness was almost like an island by themselves.
Yeah, it seems like it was.
They had the great music, and you're right. They were kind of that thing saying, okay, maybe something's going to hit, but there wasn't a lot of bands to push that movement with them.
Yeah.
I think the bands now might have a little, but they're really more geared towards. They all sound like Zeppelin, dude.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Even some of the newer bands and stuff like that we listen to that we like. Like you sent me some of that stuff. Name some of those bands.
Yeah, well, Dirty Honey, Black Coffee. Black Coffee is a really cool band.
Black Coffee's
they're
a good
really
one.
cool band. And then obviously Greta Van Fleet, as we talked about.
They're a great band too.
A cool one.
They have that little bit of a Zeppelin edge too. So.
Yeah, there's a new one called the band Feel. Mm-hmm. That's a pretty cool one. There's a couple of new bands that are out there I think are pretty cool. I like them. They're hip.
Yeah.
They sound really good. But like I said, these bands are coming in a wave. So hopefully the wave will hit. It's like being a surfer out there, man. Hopefully that wave will hit and you'll be able to catch it.
Yeah.
And I'd like to see it come back. I'm interested to see a couple of these bands. I haven't seen any of the new bands out.
Yeah.
We talked a little about maybe doing a Dirty Honey show together.
Yeah. Yep.
I know that you guys have seen them.
We did. They were good. Yeah.
I listened to them on Eddie Trunk, and they were talking about the record. They made a second record they did was actually a live one, which is crazy.
Yeah.
For a band to do a live record, especially your second record out. Mm-hmm. And dude, it sounds, I can't believe how good they sound live.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
I mean, they sound like it's recorded.
We need to go see them live for sure.
Because I'd like to see that for sure.
Yeah, because I think the only thing that we were just a little bit disappointed because they were supporting the new album. They didn't play, a lot of songs. In fact, they only played like one or two off their old album or the original. And I thought, that was, they could have.
That happens.
But it happens, because they're trying to promote the new album.
I saw the Black Crowes once, and literally my brother-in-law and I were sitting there watching the show. We're so excited to see him, and I think 10 songs in, we're like, they played Too Hot to Handle.
Yeah,
and that was the only song, and we left 3 songs later. We're like, dude, forget this, dude. We're out of here.
Yeah,
and because you get disappointed.
You do.
People expect certain things.
Yeah,
and that's why we're saying with certain bands like Tesla, they're always going to play 5 songs because you're going to be sucked on those songs. And there's a lot of their songs, but their catalog's so large, and a lot of people know them. They've been around for a lot of years. It's a little bit different than Dirty Honey.
Yeah, they've got the history too.
Dirty Honey needs to play the songs that made them where they are right now.
Agree.
And those are some of the Rollin' Sevens and those songs that are really popular.
Yeah.
So if you don't play those songs, people aren't going to relate to it, and you're going to lose fans.
Yeah, for sure.
So for you guys out there, Dirty Honey, those guys, just play the songs, man, that we want to hear, and we'll be out there checking
Greta
you
Van
guys
Fleet.
out.
These are great bands.
Yeah, Greta Van Fleet's a great band too. He actually said in the interview, I don't know who Led Zeppelin is.
No, did he?
What do you think of that? He sounds just.
I don't.
He sounds just like him.
I don't know if I buy that.
Yeah, he sounds just like him.
I don't know. I don't know if I buy that.
So the music that we're talking about a little bit about, obviously about the CDs and the cassettes. It was just a great time to go into a music store and hang out with your friends and get an album and go home and either smoke a joint or drink a beer. Mm-hmm. And by the way, we're 17, 16, 17, 18 years old doing this stuff, dude. And everybody relates to it.
Yeah, of course they do.
That's our age. Yeah. But also the younger kids have similar things too.
Yeah.
They go through it. My son went through it. My nephew went through it. My nephew just went to Coachella.
Okay. Between Coachella and Stagecoach, those are 2 huge events here in Southern California.
We were in Palm Springs, Palm Desert, seeing Tesla, and Stagecoach this weekend.
Yeah,
so
you guys said you could barely even find a place, right?
We were probably 15 minutes away from the concert, and it was packed, and we were in the middle of nowhere. We felt like we were on a desert road somewhere, and we paid a bunch of money for the hotel room. Mm-hmm. But it was worth it. It was a great show. We had a lot of fun. But he went to Coachella a couple weeks ago, and they didn't have a lot of the festivals now. Coachella, Stagecoach, they didn't have a lot of that stuff back then. We didn't have a lot of the big long festivals.
Yeah,
we generally had a day. We would have a day festival. We never had the multi nights. I don't remember a lot of those. Do you?
Just obviously the biggest one that we, Us Festival.
Festival is huge.
Obviously, that was a big one in '83. But no, there wasn't really a lot of
day events,
festivals where
Monsters
it was like
of Rock was a big one. That was one day,
a whole weekend. But yeah, exactly.
That was Monster Rock was Van Halen.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah,
Scorpions, Dawkins.
Yeah,
Kingdom Come.
Kingdom Come. That's right.
And Metallica.
Yeah.
Metallica broke out, dude. They tore the place down.
Yeah.
The second Metallica came on, all the gates got just demolished and taken down, dude, and it's a rush to the stage.
They were such a force, though. They really were.
They broke out hard.
They just came on and just slapped the music industry in the face. Metallica is just unbelievably great.
Yeah, you could go back and see there were some great bands that came out back in that time.
Yeah.
And even when the speed metal came out, I'm not a big Slayer fan.
Yeah.
but they had a great movement.
No, they did.
They had obviously Megadeth. And the funny part is some who don't know this, but the Dave Mustaine, the lead singer, was actually the guitar player in Metallica.
Yeah, it was.
He started it, and they kicked him out of the band, and he started his own thing, kind of to get back at him, really. And then he ended up having a good career too.
Mm-hmm.
And Motorhead, a lot of these guys.
We talked about Lemmy and Motorhead and all that stuff. Yeah, no, I mean, there's definitely a great variety of good music, rock music, from Speed, Hair, rock, all that kind of stuff, so it was a good mix.
And then it came into the early 90s.
Yeah.
And that's when that big thing hit.
Yep, the grunge.
And the grunge took over, right?
Yeah, it did. I mean, it seemed like, at least in a blink of an eye, you had Nirvana hit the scene and Pearl Jam and all that kind of stuff, and they just absolutely took over. Completely took over.
But like I told you, I think that rock could have survived if it wasn't for like Nirvana.
Yeah. Well, I mean, let's face it. We were talking about this too. It was the scene, the rock scene, I should say. It was starting to get oversaturated, and I think it was. I don't want to say it was kind of running its course, but I think it was just there was just so much I don't know, overexposure, right? And it was. The scene with the whole pay to play and it just became so excessive.
Think about what happened, right? So you have a great time in music.
Yeah.
Where is true? Who gets bored of sex, drugs, and rock and roll?
I'm with you.
I'm
with you.
I'm being honest. Who gets bored of that?
Yeah.
Right. I mean, and that was a truthful thing. We talked about this before too. Sex.
Yeah.
Everybody wanted to have it. Everyone's trying to get laid. Drugs were euphoric. You had that liquid courage to go talk to somebody, and then you had the rock and roll, and then the grunge comes in.
Yeah.
Now all those girls in the skirts and all the guys wearing their shirts off now are in flannels and buttoned up into things and ripped up jeans and not taking showers and hair growing from the girls' armpits. Yeah. Just crazy shit. I don't get it.
Well, because it was so new, right? It was so different from what had been in place for a while, right? And when you have that newness of that exciting sound, like, oh my, this is really, really cool. And then all of a sudden it just takes off, right? And before you know it, one scene finishes and the next scene comes on.
I loved a lot of those bands.
Me too, for sure.
I did not like Nirvana. I was not a Nirvana fan. I can respect them. I think that Kurt Cobain was a great musician.
Yep.
I think that he wrote some empowering stuff and had a great movement. But I myself was not a Nirvana fan. Nor was my dad. A funny thing is he used to always entertain us. He goes, what the fuck is this shit you're listening to? And I was not a big Nirvana fan, but I was a lot of the other bands. I was a humongous Pearl Jam fan.
Yep.
Loved Soundgarden. They were amazing. Alice in Chains. Those bands
were Pearl Jam in Hawaii, by the way.
Pearl Jam was a
cool.
great show. Yeah. They're really, Eddie Vedder's a really great guy. And you know what? I have a quick story on Pearl Jam. So a lot of people don't know this.
Yeah.
So Pearl Jam, when they first started the band, a lot of the members of Pearl Jam were from a band called Mother Love Bone.
Yeah, I remember that.
So Mother Love Bone was a band. You should get the album and check out Mother Love Bone. They are freaking awesome. One of my favorite bands. And they started, unfortunately, the lead singer died, an overdose. And Jeff, they started their own band, and it turned into Pearl Jam. But they were looking for a singer, and somebody gave them a tip about this guy, Eddie Vedder, who was a great singer. You should give him all the tape. He sent a demo tape to them, to Eddie Vedder. And Eddie Vedder, mostly, what do? You listen to it. Maybe you go down for a rehearsal, a practice, whatever it's going to be. Do you know what he did? He actually sent the tape back to them. They popped it in the machine, and he had recorded all the vocals on it. And they're fucking blown away.
Wow.
They hired him on the spot right there.
Wow.
That's how Pearl Jam was formed.
Think about how confident you have to be to do that.
100%. He's amazing.
Yeah, he is.
I mean, he's such a talented songwriter.
Yeah.
And I mean, even though we might not be I would prefer to live in the 80s with that music.
Yeah.
Because of the scene and everything that went around with it. You can't take away from who they were.
No, well, and he was such a performer too, for sure. Yeah.
And my the kids now, my nephews, my kids, your kids too, they listen to the rock stuff and they dig back into it and archive some stuff.
Yeah.
And now my son, who I listen to rock music all the time. When both my kids, my daughter and my son, were going to soccer practices and soccer games and getting fired up on some beautiful Creatures or some Metallica.
Yeah. Yeah, my kids got exposed to all that stuff, and
but they didn't follow. My sons didn't follow. My son, my son and my daughter didn't. My daughter really is heavy country right now. My son is more probably hip hop and country. But now they're digging more into rock. I know my son is a little more than my daughter, but they dig into that music and they're trying to get a feel for what it was, and that you should have history.
Yeah,
it should be a history class
on
what the stuff was back then, and the Pearl Jams and all those bands. I mean, my nephew loves Audioslave, right? So Chris Cornell after Soundgarden, he loves them, and music. It did change. It did drop and killed the scene. I think today the biggest scene is country. I gotta say, rap's pretty big, but I say country is just gigantic.
Well, I think what's helped country too is, believe it or not, they've kind of taken on a little bit of that rock edge too.
That's what's made them popular.
And if you think what Jason Aldean's sound is, and some of these other country artists that are kind of blending a little bit of that rock into country, and it's awesome. Chris Stapleton's one of my favorites, and I mean his music is awesome, and it has a little bit of that rock edge. Luke Combs, same thing. So I mean, I'm a huge country fan, and I think it's, and I've always been this way. There's nothing wrong with enjoying and liking different genres of music.
There's not.
It's whatever you're into, whatever you enjoy, and music to me marks moments in your life, moments in time, and enjoy it, embrace it. There's nothing wrong with it.
I was so saturated in the scene, never wanted to break. That is a true backbone for me, 100%. And I know your biggest music now, I think, if I'm not mistaken, is country. That's really what you aim towards more than any other music. I get in the car, I'm going to put Hair Nation on. I'm going to listen to my songs.
Yeah.
I respect the country. I hated country. I absolutely hated country when rock was around. Because it wasn't the same country.
No.
And like you say, now you can listen to a lot of stuff that's got the rock edge to it. Mm-hmm. And I think that's what's changed me to like country. There's some artists that I would love to go see country-wise. And I would have never said that before.
Yeah.
I have my brother-in-law is a big country guy. My sister-in-law and brother-in-law love country. And we would have a party over at the house here, and I would make a mixtape, and I would have all the 80s stuff in there. But I would always listen to what somebody else likes because I want them to enjoy the party.
Sure.
And I'd put a country song on and be like, "Oh, you're turning country, dude." I'm like, "No, I'm not turning country, bro. I'm respecting it."
Right.
And now...
But there again, why can't you enjoy different genres of music?
Oh, I definitely can.
I mean, I have a mixed playlist of stuff that, ranges from pop to rock to classic to country. It's, for me, it's whatever the mood strikes at that moment, I'll listen to.
I have those mixes, and funny.
Yeah.
We just
old hip hop. I got some old hip hop too.
We were just driving to see Tesla, and my buddy in the car, who Matt. He's a rocker of rockers, man. He still has like dresses in the 80s, like type of stuff. Yeah. He loves that style. And we were driving out to see the show, and I think it was one of my playlists came on, and on came a country song. It was
Did he give you that look?
It was Chicken Fry.
Oh, Chicken Fry. It's a great song, man.
It's a great song. And he looks and goes, "Dude, whose playlist is this?" And I'm like, "Well," I go, "It's like," and he goes, "I like country." He goes, "Oh, I like country too." I go, "I never saw you put that on a playlist." I go, "You know what, dude? You got to mix up, be versatile."
Yeah, you do.
So I do like a lot of stuff. I can talk about all kinds of music because I like it. I like rap stuff too.
Yeah. My
son got into a bunch of rap. Some of the rap bands that are out there, it's just too much. Nig this, nig that, fuck this, fuck that. You're pussy. Just too much stuff for me about. It's like, yes, did our guys cuss and say fuck this and all these different things? Yes. 50 Cent, yes. Snoop Dogg, yes. Tupac, yes. They all did.
Yeah.
But the depth of what they're doing now is just too.
Well, so I mean, but this could apply to different genre of music. Some of it's a little over the top, right? Some of it's a little too much.
True.
Pop, a little too much, rap, whatever it is.
And then we just said this. So some of the hair bands that are out there, bands that are playing and still playing, there's some bands, and I just caught this, there's some bands that are hanging their shoes up because they don't want to be singing the lyrics and the songs that they wrote when they were 20s in their 60s.
Yeah.
So they talked about sex or drugs or this girl, that, whatever, and they don't want to have that is their kids remembering those things of them, or other people seeing them as older people singing those songs, and they're hanging their shoes up.
What do you think about that? What's your opinion on that?
I think that they should play the music.
I think they should too.
I think it's the music that they wrote. I think that it was big at the time. I don't think that I really don't believe that. Who's going to look at it and say, with the music and the lyrics that come out today, who's going to look at that and say it's wrong?
No. And that marked a period of time, right? I mean, that's what you were, what you were into at that moment, and that's what you wrote about, right? So who's to judge, right? So anyway,
what you wrote about, and it was all about, like we said, again, sex, drugs, and rock and roll. That's what the music was about. It was about all that.
Yeah.
And a lot of the songs were about that, and some were dirtier than others. And I think maybe those guys, it's a personal feeling. But I think, dude, get the fuck out there and play the songs, man. We want to hear them.
What people want to hear. So
we want to hear the songs because we don't want these bands to fade away.
No.
And they're starting to fade, So it's unfortunate. We're getting older. They're dying off.
Yeah, say it ain't so, man.
I know, man. It's like they say, man, when you're going to more funerals and birthdays, that's a problem.
Yeah,
and we start thinking about that.
Yeah, I don't even want to go there now.
But we're gonna rain down on a lot. We're gonna rain down on a lot of this stuff, man. Some crazy stories and times, and through my passage, I was lucky enough to have a company called Mad Hatter that was a promotional company that we did a lot of nightclubs and stuff. Dude, we had, I had Mad.
What years was that? Because that was that like early 90s, would you say? Or when you guys had the Mad Hatter
I
thing
started
going?
Mad Hatter in 1988.
Okay,
I
so
actually
it was late
started
80s.
it 88 as SNL Promotions. That's what it was. And I had a friend, last name was Lambert. My last name was Shapiro.
Okay.
So I was SNL. We did that for a couple of years. And then some things went down and I was away for just a little bit of time. And when everything came back full circle, I was probably 20 years old when I started Mad Hatter. So that would have been I don't want to age myself too much, but that was in the 90s. Okay. It was 1990. So when I started that. And it went from 90 to 95, 96, 5-6 years of solid promoting.
So you had a good run out of it.
I met my wife in 95. I was towards the tail end of that because KNAC went off the air, as you know.
Yeah.
When KNAC went off the air, the day it happened, we were setting up for Black Angus night. And unfortunately, Red Onions had been gone already, and we were heavy into Black Angus as our last hurrah, and we were trying to keep it. We were trying to bring KNAC back, or keep it alive, I should say, not bring it back.
Yeah.
And it was a sad day for a lot of people because it was not a radio station. Frank, you know that.
Yeah.
It was a lifestyle.
It was absolutely a lifestyle for sure.
So
for
you when the radio station came on, they always had promotions and shows that they did.
And I have to say this. What was the song they played when they went off the air?
Fade to Black.
Exactly.
Everybody knows that.
That was such that was tough.
A lot of people cried.
Really tough.
I listened to podcasts with some of the guys from KNAC, and they were crying.
Yeah. Yeah.
Crying, dude.
Because, like you just said, it was a lifestyle.
Yeah. What are we going to do now?
Yeah.
What's going to happen? Mm-hmm. We don't know, and we all had to figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
But it was they had some of the stuff that we did with KNAC every year. Remember, they had the chili cook-off in Long Beach.
Yeah.
And that was just a huge party in itself.
That was, and then, the Grand Prix, and I remember we did the boat races. We used to go out and, do the promotions for that.
Sure.
And there was so many great events that we got to go to and experience.
Dude, so many stories to tell.
So many stories.
And we'll tell a lot of these stories.
I just, one real quick, I have to say, just from, van driver days,
I love to hear stories. I will never stop you from telling a story. Never.
Well, because I don't want to bore our audience here, but the one van driver experience I had was I was doing a promo for a Metallica show, right? And it was Verizon or Irvine Meadows at that time. I think it was Verizon. Maybe it just switched over. But so I parked the van in the front like we normally did, and opened it up and got everything going, and music and swag and all that kind of stuff, and then closing it up because the show was getting ready to start, right? So, all the fans were starting to gather around. Well, we had to close it up also because I ran out of swag. I ran out of bumper stickers and Frisbees and all that kind of stuff. So, I was done. So I called my promoter and, program manager, and Don Weiner, shout out. And, it's like, hey, what do I do? Ran out of stuff. He's like, well, just close it up and just leave it there and whatever. Just go and enjoy the show, whatever. So did that. And all the fans started to get all pissed because, there was no swag anymore. they started to rock the van, man, and they were trying to tip it over, right? So I called Don.
Did they think it was like a piggy bank that was going to crack open all the gear inside?
Yeah, like I was like holding out or something. So I called my program manager. I'm like, what do I do, dude, man? They're ready to tip it over. I was like, don't do anything. Just
just walk
just
away.
Walk away.
Be safe.
And so luckily they finally gave up and trying to tip it, and security came over and they went to the show. But that was like, holy crap, man! These Metallica fans are nuts, man.
It's just a van, dude.
But it was just a van.
It's just a van. They were making money.
Speaker system in that thing was awesome, though.
Off the chain.
Oh my god, it was so awesome,
dude. The parties that we used to have in the parking lots, remember?
Oh yeah.
Man, you used to be able to party in the parking lot at all the events. Everyone. They slowly.
You could actually tailgate in those days.
Oh yeah. You used to. They would. Unfortunately, they started slowing that down over the years because it got really crazy. People were just getting really fucked up before they went inside. And then they were also losing sales of
money on booze and stuff like that.
So they had to make a decision. And it's understandable, but to be able to have a beer or two in the parking lot was always nice. Prime up a little bit.
Yeah.
A couple shots.
Pre-party, that was always fun.
Yeah. Maybe a little Coke.
Yeah, and it was safer than
weed.
Going to a bar, pre-partying, and then driving over to the venue now and all that kind of stuff. So
it is in the partying too. But dude, I mean, and we're gonna do one of the podcasts we're gonna do, and we're gonna do get into a lot of stuff like Uber and that kind of stuff too.
Oh yeah,
we didn't have no Uber.
No, there was no ride sharing services
bottom
at that
line
point. It was a cab or Thumb.
and the bottom line is we drove drunk.
Yeah, well, we did a lot of that too.
And we'll have a podcast, and that we'll bring a lot of stuff into it.
Yeah.
Well, I think we're going to wrap this one up today.
Let's do it.
I think that's it. And we're going to get out of here, man. We hope you guys enjoyed the podcast. Make sure that you do subscribe to everything that you can get it on Spotify, YouTube, and we'll put a list out there for you. Make sure you go to rockandramble.com.
Rock and
Look
Ramble.
for some of that gear. We're going to have some pretty sick gear. We think you guys are going to like it. We're going to get some good ideas and some stuff. We're going to have some different stuff. We want you guys to buy as much as you can. Just support the program. Yep. That's all we really want. We'll tell you great stories and do what we can. And, leave us some comments and stuff. We would love to hear from you guys and see what's going on.
Absolutely. Hope you guys really enjoyed the podcast. And, we certainly enjoy hanging out with you guys. So more to come, hopefully. And, let's do this more, man. Love it.
Hey, to Rock and Ramble.
Yep.
We're out.
All right, guys.
Peace.
Later.